reserved for us. They are. Treat us good. I'm working on a couple projects. I'm staying here this week until Wednesday, and I'll be in a studio with a friend of mine and recording my last flute project for the Grammy nominations the next few years. I'm going to just try not to dominate a bit. It's just happening. I don't know what happened. I'm like, boom, get together, boom, it's happening. I'm like, okay, well, I'll see how far that can go. But all those recordings that won the Grammys were recorded here, not in Nashville. So. Anyways, yes. Really? Good man. Yeah. But anyways, I got a call from a guy named I got to tell him a couple stories from Billy Joe Shaver. Do you know who he is? He's a great songwriter from Texas. He's an awesome songwriter. And he's written songs for Johnny Cash and for Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson. And he became a big fan of mine, and his son, and he listened to all my songs for many years since the 80s. And his son, unfortunately, died of a heroin overdose, and I related to him very much so, and he'd call me every once in a while and ask me to work with him. And anyways, so he called me one day, and it's funny because I don't know how I got my numbers unlisted. So when you get a number that you don't recognize, it's either a bill collector or some freak who's on the wrong thing. So I'm like, I love to do when I find a bill collector, I go, can't hear you, man. Click. But this guy gets on the phone. He goes, hey man, this is Bill Miller. I said, yeah, it's Bill. He says, hey man, it's Billy Joe Shaver. Hey Billy Joe, how you doing? I'm doing good, man. Man, I miss seeing you, man. My son, he passed away a couple years ago, and he had your CD playing, man, and he was getting wrecked up on that heroin crap. But he says, you know what? He's with the Lord, man. I love my son. I miss my son, man. And I miss seeing you, man. I said, well, I miss you too, Billy Joe. He says, well, you in Nashville? I said, yeah, I'm here for about 3 days. He said, man, would you jump on my record, man? Would you play on my record and sing with me? I said, yeah, man, I'd do anything for you, man. He says, well, man, I'll give you a call tomorrow, Tuesday, and I'll give you some directions. But you can come out to the studio and sing on my next record. I said, okay, cool. So he calls me and he gives me these directions, and it's out in Hendersonville, which is about 45 minutes from Nashville, north. So I take off, and I didn't know where I was going. I just had this little address and GPSed it out there. Going to this big gate, and there's a telephone, a little security camera, and it's like a gated community. But it was one big house, a mansion and a cabin in the woods. So I pulled up the gate, and he said, yes. I said, it's Bill Miller. Oh man, come on in, Bill. We've been waiting on you. So the gate opens up, like the kingdom. Drive in, man, and as I'm driving back, I can see this cabin, and I get out, and I get my guitar out, my flute's out, I'm walking in, and everybody's really friendly down there. I love Tennessee and Texans. They're just sweet people. So Billy Joe comes out, hey man, thanks for coming, man. Come on in, man. Let's make this record happen. I said, okay, brother. So I walked in, I looked over the door, and it says House of Cash. It was Johnny Cash's cabin. It was Johnny Cash's mansion I was at. So I walked in, and it was like, whoa, man. So I played the song, and I'm in Johnny Cash's cabin. I've seen pictures of him and June Carter in there, and it's a very cool place. Got done, this big guy comes in, he says, man, where you been all my life? I said, what do you mean? I've been in Nashville since 1985. He goes, man, I guess I missed you because I was sort of messed up in those years. He says, but you're here now. He says, man, I just love what you just did on this record, man. He says, my name is John Carter Cash. I'm Johnny's son, the only son that John June had. I said, good to meet you, John. And after we got done with the session, he asked me, he said, you know, Bill, he says, would you ever consider working with me, doing a project with me? I said, I'd love to, man. Someday when it's right, let's do it. So anyways, about a month ago, I'm walking through the bookstore, Barnes & Noble in Nashville, and I pick up a billboard, and I turn to the middle, and there's a big article on Johnny Cash on a re-release of an album that John Carter was fighting for a re-release of Bitter Tears. And it's an album that Johnny recorded about American Indian rights and the land rights of American Indians that nobody else in the 60s was doing. He was the only one, and Columbia Records refused to release it. They wouldn't release it. It's still out there. So anyways, John Carter was talking about how his family loved American Indians. So my wife sees it, and she says, you better call John Carter Cash, and you better do that record. You better do a record. You know, it takes a woman to get a man going. A guy will sit on it for a long time. I call him when I feel like it. So I called him immediately, and John Carter says, man, come on out, man, let's start writing them, man. We started writing these songs. We're going to finish it hopefully by August. And it's called Sons of Thunder, Shades of Black. So both of us were raised with addict fathers. Both of us were raised with men of thunder. My dad was a full-blown alcoholic and just a full-blood Indian and rage-filled and violent lifestyle. But he was a major Johnny Cash fan. Major Johnny Cash fan. And so what's cool is my dad died April 11th, 1993. He drank himself to death. I don't know the exact date Johnny Cash passed away, but I thought, wow, man. And John Carter said the same thing. He said, our dads are pretty happy you and I are working together. I said, that's cool, man. What we decided to do was write every song without any Nashville hit songwriters. It's just he and I. So every copyright says Cash Miller, Cash Miller. Get this. This is the topper. He walks me into Johnny Cash's mansion, and we walk in there, and he's got a safe in there. He opens it up, and there's like freaking Grammys from heck everywhere. All these little Grammys. Little ones. They're not as big as the ones today. They were smaller, older Grammys that Johnny must have won. And behind it was this piece of paper. And he says, hey, check this out, man. My dad wrote this back in the 60s. It's a poem called Sequoia. Sequoia was a Cherokee chief, a leader who wrote an alphabet, created an alphabet. He was one of the few people in the world to create an alphabet in that day and age for his people, and wrote magazines and newspapers with an alphabet from Cherokee Indians. So Johnny Cash wrote this poem, epic poem about it. But he says, my dad, he never put music to it, he never copyrighted this, so would you take this and put music to it, and it'll say Johnny Cash, Bill Miller? I go, yes! It rocks! It rocks! Anyways, one of the hardest, it's too easy now. It's like, wow, this is easy, but one of the hardest gigs I've ever played in my life was playing Amazing Grace. And I'll play it next set on the flute. Well, next to my dad's casket in 1993, he had left me a note. My dad couldn't talk to me. He didn't tell me why he lived such a hard life. I tried to ask him. He just never told me. So I had to learn through reconciliation and many, many years to forgive my dad. I hated my dad to the core. I hated him. It wasn't until around 2005 I started getting it out and becoming a better man, a better husband, and just a better musician because I reconciled. So again, we need to reconcile with this land. It's going to make us better. It's going to make our earth better. It's going to make life better. We need to do that. We need to understand that. And it's amazing what's happening right now with our hearts. I can feel it out there right now. So I want to do a Johnny Cash tune for you. Would you mind? It's the first tune I learned how to play on guitar was a Johnny Cash song. But before I do, I got to tell you this story about another Amazing Grace story. Do you mind one more story? There's